Hey, everybody. I want to start by thanking Launch Tennessee for coordinating this with the Stanley Cup. I think we should do it every year. What do you guys think? That's cool. So we've got a rock star panel. Thanks for the really nice introduction, Allison. Saves me from having to talk about myself. But I want to introduce you to this great panel that we've got to talk today. I want to start with Eric Day, the VP and GM of North American Small Business at Dell. Eric, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. So I've been at Dell for 18 years. I actually started right out of college and worked myself through pretty much the sales organization at Dell and moved to Europe for 4 years between 2009 and 2013, where I did 4 years of marketing. Came back and I worked into our consumer channel business, which is we're working with our largest retailers, so the Best Buys, the Walmarts, the Office Superstores. And then just recently, in the last 18 months, I've taken over our small business division, which I'm lucky to service our customers that have 1 to 99 employees. And we own both the web part of the business, which is Dell.com for work, as well as we have an entire sales organization that can deal with customers directly.
Great. Thanks, Eric.
Yep.
Next to Eric is Chip Blaufus, and Chip is the AVP of Strategic Innovation at HCA. Really quick, Chip, before you jump in, I just thought it was funny. Chip and I got together last night, and he was really happy to be at a conference where not everyone knew what HCA was automatically. So tell him about HCA and you, Chip.
Yeah. So I've been at HCA about 10 years. First, helping lead our strategy group, and about 3 years ago, split off and started a group around what we call strategic innovation. And what we try to do is support individuals in the company, leaders either here in Nashville or at any of our hospitals who are pursuing new solutions. They can be sourced internally or externally, from the startup community all the way up to a large company like a Google or a Dell. And we work with them to make sure that testing, that piloting goes as efficiently and as effectively as possible. With the goal is what we're trying to do is figure out how quickly can we learn whether or not this new solution, this new idea could be a benefit for the whole company.
Awesome. And next to Chip is Rob Brunette. Rob is the lead project manager for Next Adventures at the Motley Fool down from DC. Thanks for coming, Rob.
Thank you so much for having me. Motley Fool, in case you don't know, it's a company that's been around for about 24 years. The purpose is to help individual investors cut through the jargon and noise of Wall Street and create portfolios from publicly traded companies, and so that's what we've been doing. I'm here today to talk a little bit about the small portfolio that we've started with some early stage startup companies, and I'm one of the directors on that group. We're really focused on bringing the operational experience that we've had for the last couple decades to really young, fantastic entrepreneurs, and that's what we'll be chatting about.
Awesome. And next to me is Christina Hahn. She's the head of America's Publisher Solutions and Innovation at Google. Hey, Christina.
Hi. Yeah, so I've been at Google for 11 years now, and the first 9 years of my career I spent on what they consider the buy side of advertising, so working with large brands like Coca-Cola, took some trips down to Memphis and was with AutoZone, and I've then moved over 2 years ago to our partnership side of the business, where we work with publishers large and small. It could be anyone from New York Times, Washington Post, to Viacom, to Snapchat, Amazon, eBay, and help them monetize and distribute their content.
Terrific. So we got a great group. So let's set the stage a little bit here. Here we are in a place where over the last 15 years, we've watched 52% of the Fortune 500 disappear. Large companies are great. They're excellent when it comes to maintaining and scaling their existing business models, but they're at risk because of the very things that have made them large and profitable. Because they're focused on maximizing shareholder return, and that generally means playing it safe and not necessarily taking risks, sticking to what's predictable. So I've heard it referred to as corporate short-termism. Eric, you have a kind of a unique perspective because you've worked for a company that was public and now is private again. Do you think Dell takes a long enough view towards innovation and planning for the future?
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, I think all of us that have worked for big companies would say your number one priority is hit your number. Right? I mean, we'll always be a very drive for your results organization. I mean, we want to make sure that we are doing what we need to do to produce for the company. That always kind of has to be the number one goal. But what happens when you're public, your short-term goals almost take precedence over the long-term goals. And what happened when Michael took the company public in 2013, a lot of that pressure completely went away. And then, flashback two years later, we are involved in probably the largest tech buyout in the history with the purchase of EMC. And now we're probably one of the largest technology infrastructure companies in the world. And it was amazing to see. Now, while all of us still needed to hit our numbers and continue to grow, what we saw when we went public, or when we went private, is our innovation and our ability to go to market kind of changed. We were able to give a bit of a different message. We didn't feel like we were having to play it, to your point, as safe as we were before. And so it was almost this blessing of two worlds, where we started to grow short term, but then we were also able to kind of make all these long-term purchases and take all this kind of long-term debt without having the market be like, oh wait, you can't do that because you're not showing profit A, B, and C. And it really helped kind of where we are today. And I mean, it's a great place to be, and it's not normal that you're at a company 18 years when you're 41 years old, right? I mean, I meet 41-year-olds all the time. They've been 5, 6, 7 jobs.
Sure.
And one of the reasons that I've been able to do that is because the innovation that Michael has is just out of this world, and it's been a fantastic company to work for all these years.
So how did that change when you went from public to private again? Did it allow you to take a more open approach to innovation? What does that mean?
I think that, at the sales level, it kind of was my point. At the sales level, we still needed to drive and continue to hit that number and continue to know that you still had those quarterly goals. That it didn't feel like a big change there, right? All of a sudden, the bosses didn't come down and say, "Oh yeah, you can miss your number for the quarter," right? That didn't change the environment which was good. But what it allowed the strategy teams to do and the PG teams to do was to take more risks on innovation. And one of the things, and I should have brought it with me, but we've been kind of on the forefront of touch technology in the PC. We've been on the forefront of kind of 2-in-1 technology and being able to convert a PC into a tablet. And now, you look at what Michael has done since we've gone public on this kind of end-to-end solution, where we're not only a technology company. I mean, we have been looked at as a technology company since I started at Dell, but now people are really starting to look at us as almost as much of a service company as a hardware company, right? In my business, in that 1 to 99 space, I've got customers calling me up needing a battery, and I've got customers calling me that need cloud infrastructure, right? And we're able to do that because of the innovation and the decision to go from a fully kind of featured hardware company to an end-to-end solutions company. That wouldn't have been able to happen if we had not gone private.
Great. Christina, Google's known for making significant investments in forward-thinking technologies. What kind of structures did you guys put in place that really make that possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're, everybody's probably read and heard about our 20% projects and what we allow teams to work on. Other things, if you have a big idea, you're given the leeway and some resources to go explore it. We have gotten bigger, and it becomes more and more challenging, but you can still find those pockets of innovation, and we're always trying to, I mean, it resonated when you said you still have to hit your quarterly numbers, no doubt about it, but taking the long-term view and really looking at where's the industry moving and making sure that we're moving forward with that and helping our partners move forward in that direction. Because our partners are the core part of our ecosystem. When you look at the way Google makes money, when you look at our contracts, the majority of them are revenue share. Yeah. So if our partners do not thrive, we do not thrive. So we have to look at things and bigger challenges in the marketplace and figure out how are we going to help our partners solve for that. When you think about mobile web and some of the things we've released there, I think those are good examples with AMP pages and PWAs, progressive web apps, and how we can help partners grow into the future of where user engagement's driving. I thought it was interesting that the panel before, or the fireside chat before, they closed out, and it was really at the heart of the user experience was where it ended, of like using your customers, and that is very much a core of what we do, and listening to our customers, in particular our partners, and what they need.
Is that culture baked into Google, or is it something you have to work at still?
It's baked in, yeah, absolutely. I think it's just everybody there has an entrepreneur spirit. It's you know, we're encouraged to be part of the startup ecosystem, encouraged to make investments and just be involved and understand what's happening on the cutting edge.
Yeah. Well, Chip, you've told me that in the past that the reason that your group was created at HCA was to enable your company to test startups more quickly. What led to that change in thinking?
You know, it's the classic story that, you know, we hear about and talk about in leadership meetings about some great project. And, you know, and a few months later, you go back to that individual and you're like, how's it going? And they'll be like, and it, you know, and it ran into all sorts of problems, whether it was budgeting or legal or IT, or they got shifted off to another priority. And as we looked at that, tried to understand how was innovation happening within HCA, it wasn't actually that we weren't generating ideas internally or from external. It was the process of going from idea to proving it and figuring out how to incorporate it in a strategy that was breaking down. And so the thought was, you know, can we bring the same discipline, same structure and process that we do to a lot of our other work to the innovation process? And that's what prompted it.
Interesting.
I think a key thing with that too is just making sure you're learning. That's
Yes,
what
absolutely.
the moniker for my team is failure to learn is not an option.
Yeah.
So failure to learn is not an option, to make sure everybody's really thinking about that. And we have one of the core philosophies of our company is psychological safety, and making sure we're providing that psychological safety environment where someone can fail and we'll take the learnings from that and they're not penalized for that. So that way we can still drive learning.
Have you been able to do that, Chip?
Yeah, that's
The psychological
exactly
safety?
right. Is every project that my team supports, we set up, you know, objectives for the project. What are we trying to learn? What are we trying to accomplish? How are we going to measure that? But at the very base level is how can this inform our strategy? Even if it's a failure or it doesn't work and we have to go back to the drawing board, what did we learn? And to make sure that we don't repeat the exact same project again. Let's apply those learnings to the next iteration.
Could you give us an example of a company that you've engaged with, and kind of how that looked?
You know, I think one that's been talked about, and it's a space that we're doing a lot of work in, is around data and natural language processing. A company here in town called Digital Reasoning, and we've been working with them for a while, and have set up, both initially when we first started working with them, setting up projects. How would you use NLP on healthcare data? How could we use it? And now that we've got several examples that have been rolled out to the company, now we're exploring more and more, and even helping train people inside of HCA. How would you, now that you've got this data, now you've got this tool, what would you use it for? But it's, you know, like with any data project, it is, you try it out, you learn from it, did it work? Do we need to refine the tool to get the analysis out or the recommendations from it? We're using it a lot around clinical decision support.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that is super important, and I couldn't agree with the panel more about the failure to learn and it being okay to fail, because it's going to happen no matter what, is make sure that you set yourself up with milestones. Right? It's such an important thing, because having the metrics and having the goals that you need to ensure that the project is valid is important, but set yourself up milestones that are achievable so that you feel like you've won. At the end, you might still end up with a failure, which is okay, but ensure that across the way that you've set up milestones for your projects, or set milestones up for whatever you're working on with that new company or that partner, in order to make sure that people feel like they're winning throughout the process.
Sure. Okay, thanks. Rob, you're leading a newly created corporate venture capital team for the Motley Fool, but your impetus for getting into that's a little different than maybe some of these other companies. What led the Fools to start investing in themselves?
Yeah, it was pretty serendipitous. I'm going to touch on some of the things that have already come up. Culture, psychological safety, and some of the other things are part of that. Culture has been huge for the Motley Fool. I'm fortunate to work at a place where the two brothers who founded the company, they set it up culture first, and that's been so important. So learning and development being a key. investing and being a student of business just as a part of our DNA, part of our core values. So our first investment was basically a buyout of our Motley Fool UK group. They wanted to go in a different direction. We wanted to keep the Motley Fool UK brand. So we went ahead and did that. But the other thing I'll mention, similar to what Christine talked about, was within the company, trust is a big part of our culture. So if people are working on, so we don't have the specific 20% time, but we want people to be generating new ideas, generating projects. And so that's been a big part of how we've done it. 5 of our 8 companies have actually been fools who've either left the company, come back with a new venture for us to invest in, or a couple cases have been fools who, we call ourselves fools, capital F, have to say that, who have been at a decision point. It's time for me to decide if I want to do this full-time or stay with the company. And I think one thing that we've done with our culture is just create a network of trust and kind of cultivating a great network. So those people who've left wanted to come back. And those opportunities have just come to us. We weren't actively seeking out the deal flow, but they just were such a good fit that it made sense for us to go ahead and take an investment. We invest off our balance sheet.
Okay. So maybe, can you give us an example and explain the process that you went through when one of those folks came to you and said, we're thinking about leaving, but we want to do something. We'd love for you to invest in what we're doing.
Yeah, so In Her Sight is a great company. It was founded basically to help women have a voice in terms of the employers that they want to work for, so they have an opportunity to rate their employers based on a number of characteristics. And so three Motley Fool members were working on that project, and it got very close to the point where it made sense. It looked like it could be a full-fledged venture. So there's 7 of us on our team. We're spread out through a number of different departments. And overall, I should say, the company's small. We're 320 people total. So people know where to find members of the team. And basically, it was an opportunity that when the conversation started emerging and it looked like they were going to go off in the right direction, we did the due diligence. We had the criteria that were pretty much set for what we were looking for in the company. It was earlier than typical than what we do, but all of the points were leading in the right direction, and we decided to go ahead and be their initial investor.
That's great. So one of the questions that I hear from founders all the time is, I'd love to do business with company X, but it's a behemoth. I don't even know where to start. Christina, are there touch points in your organization that's a great place for a founder if they're interested in reaching out to Google that they can start with?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of different initiatives in how we work with startups from all different capacities. So let's say you're a content creator. YouTube has a lot of different opportunities. We have YouTube Spaces, which are full production suites. You get to use all the equipment for free, and you only need 10,000 subscribers, and you can, 1,000 if you're a nonprofit. And you can just sign up and literally use top-of-the-line production suites in order to create your content that we hope you'll eventually put on YouTube, because distribution is another key area where we can help. What's amazing too, and this was mentioned a bit earlier, is just the opportunity by joining something like that to network with people who are in your space doing that. Every single different initiative that we have always includes some form of training. Like our cloud platform, we're constantly doing training and teaching people different things. And so we're trying to create communities and bringing people together depending on what the interest is. So YouTube's one example. We have a lot of platforms for small businesses. Google My Business it's amazing to me that Google My Business exists to be like an extension of your website, basically. So when someone's trying to find you, when you're trying to acquire new users, you can make sure that all of your information is accurate, so someone searches it and they can find you. But there's also a lot of data and tools that you can get out of that. So my favorite story is a famous seafood place in Baltimore. And they use Google My Business as a dashboard, and they can tell by the amount of people who are searching that day for their business how much foot traffic they're going to have, and then plan their day based on that. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
This is a 100-year-old family-run business in Baltimore using data in a very effective way. So you have those elements, and then we also have Google for Entrepreneurs, just setups. We actually have one here in Nashville. There's only 9 in the United States. Nashville is one city. I think it's on Peabody Street. I don't know if I'm getting that straight right, but and again, that's providing a great community and network for people. I can tell you that you'll have people like me who will go and volunteer and help you understand how to utilize some of our platforms. There's also other educational things, thought leadership pieces, opportunities to network. So many different facets of ways you can tap into us.
Awesome.
If I could jump in on there. One of the things that we found was that it was not only about entrepreneurs and startups trying to get into HCA, but even trying to connect people inside of HCA who were running into and seeing and checking them out. Like we have, each one of our markets has a CIO. And one would talk to a startup and the next one would talk to the same one, and we weren't connecting them. And so we've actually invested in our rolling out a startup here in town called Lucro. And it is basically social networking inside and then also with the entrepreneurs for them to, if you think about like Pinterest cards and so forth, for startups to put their solutions into the site. We can see it, we can have our conversations about it, but we can be interacting with the leadership team of the startup. We actually can connect with other health systems that are participating in it as well. So we can see if Providence out in the Pacific Northwest is working with them, we can ping the team there and say, hey, what do you think about it? What are you seeing? And that's accelerating a lot of our understanding of being able to scan a segment and also be able to connect among ourselves about it.
Yeah, there's a similar thing that we do. We have an internal team called Sand Hill Road, which actually started out of a 20% project. And Sand Hill Road works with the top venture capital firms. So if there's anyone here who's already gotten venture capital funding, we use the venture capital firms to source for us. Usually they've gone through a startup that's gone through a series A through C, usually B2C, something that's very interesting in the mobile arena, where we will work with them. And the goal of the program is to help consult and give them access to resources to utilize Google's products to help them succeed. And for us, it's how do we find the next Pinterest before it becomes Pinterest. So it's a great program that, like I said, was started out of a 20% project, just seeing a need in the market, that we eventually built out to a full team on a global scale now.
And be on the lookout for those companies that started out as an entrepreneurial company, right? I mean, Michael Dell is, you know, it's one of his biggest focuses because he knows that's where he started. And so look for those companies, because no matter where you go, if it's a company that started as a startup, they'll most likely have programs galore. I mean, we have everything from, one of the things that we really hang our hat on is that we're really focused on women entrepreneurs right now. So we have the Dell Women's Entrepreneur Network, where we go around the entire globe looking for that next really, you know, kind of hot new idea coming out of the women entrepreneur community. And we're right now, I think it was just in the press a couple weeks ago, Michael and Susan just dumped $1 billion into their foundation on social good entrepreneurs. So just be looking out in the press, look at the companies that you're interested in working at, you know, be conscientious of what is a good fit for you as well.
Well, Eric, do you publish your strategic interests? I mean, how do they know if they're a good fit?
Oh yeah. I mean, very similar to what Christina and Chip both said. Normally, you can just go to our website, type in entrepreneur, and we'll give you pretty much all the different programs that we have right on our website. We have social media, we have Facebook pages, we have LinkedIn pages, we have Twitter feeds, all focused on the entrepreneur community that you can get tapped into. And we have Dell Capital, we have, I mean, you name it. And so, and then the other thing I would say, and it was mentioned earlier as well, is network. These conferences are here for a reason. If there are certain companies that you need help from, look at what they're sponsoring, whether it's, you know, this conference, whether it's the Small Business Expo. There are tons of conferences, especially coming to cities like Nashville. Make sure that you go to those, and there most likely will be a booth for every one of those big companies. It sounds simple, but network with those people, get their business cards. They're compensated most likely on getting you guys signed up, so use that as a resource, right? I mean, they're there to help you. We're not as scary as we look, I promise.
Yeah, and I would say when we're talking major corporations here, we're also, I mean, I know like with our cloud program, when we're at those events and we're working with startups, we're giving them free credits. So we want to help you succeed and survive. So there's usually opportunities for you to get free things out of it too. So it's worth it to go up to the booth, find out what they're doing, what are they training people on, what are we giving away, because there are a lot of benefits to being a startup.
So the other question I hear from founders a lot of times is what do I really want? Do I want this company as a customer? Do I want them as an investor? Or maybe both? You know, and sometimes the sort of related question is, does it hurt me in developing them as a customer if I'm asking them for money? Rob, I know you at least have had an example where you were in a customer first and transitioned to an investor. How did that happen?
Yeah, so You Earned It is a fantastic digital platform for employee-to-employee recognition. And that was one thing that a couple years back, we do twice yearly engagement surveys, and we saw that the company was falling a little bit behind in that. So a couple of folks from we have a people and culture team, and they met You Earned It at a conference, and basically it was a great match. There was an incredible mission alignment. The platform took off immediately. It was very easy for everyone to understand what this meant. Everyone in the company sees the recognition, so when a coworker goes above and beyond, type out a few sentences, you give them, we call it gold, but it's a point system, so you can trade that in for gift cards or activities, events. We actually have a guy who is a former butcher who will give you a butcher lesson if you want to trade in your points for that. But You Earned It, it just was a great fit with the employees, as well as culturally. Autumn Manning, who's the CEO, is fantastic, and she hit it off right away with our people and culture team, and then a year went past, another year went past, excuse me, and there was so much alignment with our CEO, CFO, that when they came to us and said, we're about to close a round, would you like to be part of that? Help us with this initial seed investment. We'd already had that relationship for a couple of years, and so that worked really well. And I would say, if you're in that position, make sure that you've got your advocates, so the people that you're working with day to day, your clients are really prospering from the work that you're doing. You have knowledge, you're subject experts. Continue to find ways to bring that knowledge to your customer. So for example, You Earned It recently rolled out 3 new features, and what they did was they held virtual meetings where they would bring 3 or 4 clients together. They shared what was going on, got some feedback on that. But during the call, one of the best things was that they got us talking. So they got the customers talking, and we're actually making connections with the customers as part of that call. And that's very valuable. That's something that you can do just as part of it. But it's also, you do have that chance to interview while you're in that relationship. You do want to understand, do I want to extend the hand and ask for an investment? Before you do that, is this a company that you want to work with? How's the leadership? Are they transparent? How are those day-to-day decisions being made? So you have that opportunity as well to learn before you go ahead and show your hand that you'd like to get an investment together.
Interesting. So Chip, I want to make sure we touch on this. I know one interesting thing, sort of unique thing to HCA is that you guys pilot everything you do, right? You don't make an investment without piloting.
Correct.
So obviously you've learned a little bit about that, got piloting down to a science. What can you tell us about that?
I think that the sort of the rule that we have is we're customer first, investor second. So all of our investments are with companies that we've first decided that we want to roll out across the company. And in the pilot process, it is a test and evaluation of the solution. Does it work? How would it roll out across the company? And so it's setting up a test, and it can go through several phases. We can start small in a unit, and then go to a hospital, and then go to a market. But ultimately, it's trying to understand what's the objective. It's back to what we were talking about earlier. What are we trying to affect? Is it patient experience, HCAHPS scores? Is it a clinical metric? Is there a financial return connected? It doesn't always have to be that. It can be clinical experience. But what are we trying to impact? What does it take to roll out the pilot? And ultimately, is it something that we think that we can scale across the company? Mm-hmm. When we're working with a startup, part of the question that enters into it is and we find great solutions in the startup community where they have been much more laser focused on a problem and have come up with a solution than a larger company. But maybe they've only rolled it out at 10 hospitals. And so the question that we end up having is well, when we go to them like, hey, it worked great, let's do 170. And can you do it in 2 years? And we'll, obviously we're proposing a massive stretch for them. And so then the question is, how would that work? How would we help them on that? How would we partner on incorporating that solution across the enterprise?
Thanks, that's great.
And I'd just add to that, the advice I give to the room on what Chip just talked about was make sure you're flexible with the company, because when we've piloted, we just launched in my business, we just launched an entire new way to contact our customers. We were seeing kind of a drop off in our development customers. These are customers that have bought with us in the last year. We had seen that they were falling off in the last 12 months, and so for the first time ever, we've been kind of more of an inbound call center, and we wanted for the first time ever to start outbounding to these customers that would fall off after 12 months. And so instead of going with that big, huge CRM firm, we decided to RFP like 4 or 5 different CRM agencies that were what we considered small businesses, because we really wanted to tap into what we were selling, right? We're selling to sell small businesses. We wanted to support the community. And what we piloted, I think, 3 of the 5 that we RFP'd. And they were all doing fairly well. They were kind of consistent, but there was this one company that really stood out because every single request that we had to kind of look at the data a little bit differently or to add a new field to make the data a little bit more concise so that the sales rep had better data when they called out to the customer, they were so flexible in everything that we asked for. It ultimately took them from kind of going with the pack to really standing themselves out. And it's been a tremendous partnership with them. We've done a full rollout in the last couple of months, and they've just been an outstanding partner. So it just makes sure that you're flexible and make sure that when a big corporation asks questions, we're not doing it because we're trying to make it hard for you. We're doing it because it's really going to help out our business, and it's ultimately going to be the way that you're going to get the deal.
Mm-hmm. Well, we could talk for hours about this topic, but we've got a room full of entrepreneurs and investors with early stage companies in their portfolios. So I want to give each of you a chance. Any of you that want to address it, what are the kinds of companies that you guys want to see? Are there interests you have right now?
Ladies first.
Go ahead.
Yes. It is partly what we're using the innovation function for is also to help inform us about where technology is going, where our entrepreneurs thinking healthcare is going, and what that might mean for HCA. And so on one level, a lot of our work is focused on how do we advance the strategy of HCA, where do we need to be going next, what's on the next horizon for our growth strategy, our clinical strategy. But at the same time, we're also looking to entrepreneurs and VCs to help us think about what's even further beyond and what we need to start incorporating. So, a lot of our work, it's not going to be surprising what we're looking at. From a technology standpoint, it's blockchain, it's the impact of voice. How can voice be used in a patient room? Telehealth is another. It's going to be a lot of the things that we're all talking about, all thinking about.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on a key point of really aligning with where your business is going. And that's a key theme for us when I think about the areas where we're best suited to work with startups is monetization, distribution, user acquisition, engagement, which is like the assistant at Google I/O. We announced the Assistant SDK. And our leaders are up there saying, like, we can't wait to see what you build with it. And we mean that. We want to put it out there with these open APIs and let people build things and come back to us. And then the infrastructure side, which, like I said, is cloud and then data and analytics.
That's awesome.
And I talked about this before. I think right now, Dell is really focused around social good and trying to make the world a better place, whether that's in healthcare, whether that's in our environment, whether that's, just making our country a better place to live. Companies that are trying to do that within their job or could be a supplier that could help us in that mission is going to be a really big thing for Dell. Social good is really at the forefront of our strategy right now.
Thanks, Eric. Well, we only have a couple minutes, but if anybody has any burning questions, I wanted to reserve a little time for Q&A. Do we have a mic out there? Mm-hmm. Anybody want to stand up? Okay.
First, I just want to make a comment to Chip. I think when you were speaking about Michael Dell, he made a very courageous thing when he bought back his company because it was very expensive. And the article I read said that he did it because the shareholders, the public shareholders, were forcing him to put the money back in to, dividends and things for the shareholders, whereas when he had it back, he doubled or tripled your R&D budget. And, some of the innovation came back to the company. So that made a lot of sense, but boy, what a price he paid. Yeah. I think he lost all personal wealth, but at his level, it doesn't matter, does it? My question's for Christina. One of the really interesting things to come out of Google Ventures, I teach entrepreneurship, is the 5-day design sprint. Are you familiar with that?
I am not as familiar. I do not work with capital G. So I'm on the partnership side of the business, and that's a completely different arm.
Well, maybe you could just explain what Google Ventures does, and I think they have regular corporate customers, don't they?
It's not my area of expertise to talk about.
Google's gotten very big. Well, anyway, what I know about it is it's a 5-day lean startup test. You do something different every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you go interview 5 specific targets. And, you know, it's just a very quick way to solve a problem or test a new idea. And I'm new on it. It's fascinating. So thank you for Google Ventures.
Mm-hmm. Do we have time for one more? All right, one more question. Okay.
Thank you. If you're solving a problem as a startup for a large corporation, and the corporation itself understands that that problem exists, yet hasn't necessarily built in the want to solve it, how do you approach those corporations as a startup?
I'd love to. You know, I mean, you don't want to talk about a dynamic challenge, and and honestly, it's a challenge for us too. We'll have startups come in, present a great solution, and you're like, wow, and you know, like that is really interesting. And when a startup comes in, either through my team or through other avenues in the company, we ask the subject matter experts 3 questions. Is it interesting? Is it strategic? And do you have the capacity to take it on? And so many times that subject matter expert, that business lead, will answer yes to the first 2 questions. It is interesting and it is strategic, but they can't answer yes to the last one, that they have capacity or that their team has capacity. And so what we've tried to start doing is mapping out their priorities from an innovation standpoint, and trying to track, well, when might be a good time to bring that one back up, to bring that back in, and so that we almost are having a cadence of let's check back, and we're looking at the opportunities that sit on the horizon, and let's explore it. So that it's having what we really call an innovation roadmap. And we do it around our different experiences with different stakeholders, physicians, nurses, patients. We do it on technology, is to have this roadmap. And what we end up telling the startups is what, and I was thinking about how would I characterize it, it's patient persistence. Is be patient with us. I mean, so many times, we'll tell you if it's a really interesting idea, but we'll also tell you we don't have the capacity right now. So check back with us. But be patient with us, but be persistent. Do call back. Don't give up. But it is a matter of also finding that right time for us to take you on.
Good question, thank you. And Christina, Eric, Chip, Rob, thank you guys so much. It was great.
Thanks for having us.